While working in New Orleans in the 90s, I liked going into the witchcraft shops. And in one of these stores, I came across a Satanic Bible. Nowadays, it isn't a big thing, but pre-internet, you couldn't find books like these unless you're in a large city bookstore. The Satanic Bible is a collection of essays and rituals published by Anton LaVey in 1969. The Church of Satan is an atheistic religious organization founded in San Francisco in 1966. It treats Satanism as a philosophy of individualism, carnal pleasure, egoism, rather than the worship of a literal devil or deity, and it views Satan as a metaphor for human nature. The Satanic Bible is composed of 4 books, the books of Satan, Lucifer, Belial, and Leviathan. Each book is connected to the 4 classical elements of earth, air, fire, and water. There's a few stories on how this book came to be published. Apparently a friend of LaVey's suggested that he write the book. LaVey and his wife had already published a number of essays regarding Satanism, and the movie Rosemary's Baby had just come out, so the topic of the devil was popular at that moment. Either to meet length requirements set by the publisher or out of agreement with the ideas, LaVey borrowed from writings of other authors. Some accused him of paraphrasing the 9 satanic statements from Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged without acknowledgement, though others say that he was simply drawing inspiration from the novel. The 9 satanic statements are things like Satan represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek, or Satan has been the best friend the church has ever had as he has kept it in business all these years. In one interview, LaVey described his ideology as just Ayn Rand's philosophy with ceremony and ritual added. He advocated for selfishness as a virtue and rejected altruism and Christian morality. Although it is no longer included in current printings of the Satanic Bible, early versions had a 2-page dedication to various people who were influences on him. There were philosophers, actors, authors, inventors, a magician, Houdini, and a guy named Ragnar Redbeard, real name Arthur Desmond, who was a poet and author, and he wrote Might is Right in 1896. Some members of the Church of Satan published an edition in 2003, and that's when I got my copy. This book argues things like that power, physical strength, and the ability to conquer are the only true measures of right and justice. In Book 1 of the Satanic Bible, the Book of Satan, it's largely taken from parts of Might is Right. It advocates social Darwinism, saying things like death to the weakling, wealth to the strong, and I break away from all conventions that do not lead to my earthly happiness. There's also an adaptation of the Christian Beatitudes, like blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, and changed to things like blessed are the powerful, for they shall be reverenced among men, cursed are the feeble, for they shall be blotted out. Book 2, the Book of Lucifer, contains the majority of the philosophy of the Satanic Bible. For LaVey, Satan is not an anthropomorphic being with cloven hooves, but a force of nature. He viewed Satan as a metaphor or a symbol, not as something to be worshipped. The golden rule is altered from do unto others as you would have them do unto you, to do unto others as they would do unto you. So if someone treats you poorly, you respond harshly. The book also contains a list of the 4 crown princes of hell, Satan, Lucifer, Belial, and Leviathan, and of 77 infernal names that are representations of Satan from other cultures that are most useful in satanic rituals. One chapter titled Satanic Sex discusses sexual activity and denies the belief that sex is the most important element in Satanism. LaVey also writes that one who has lived a full life will dread death, so suicide is discouraged except in cases of euthanasia where it would relieve extreme suffering. He writes that Satanists are encouraged to indulge in all the deadly sins as they need hurt no one. They were only invented by the church to ensure guilt on its followers. Book 3, the Book of Belial, describes ritual and magic. LaVey defines magic as the change in situations or events in accordance with one's will, which would, using normally accepted methods, be unchangeable. Aleister Crowley defined magic as the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. So they both believed using one's own will, or maybe your psychology, was extremely important in magic. LaVey discusses 3 types of rituals in this section. Sex rituals work to entice another person. Compassion rituals improve health, intelligence, and success. And destruction rituals, of course, work to destroy. He also goes on to list the key components to successful ritual, which are desire, timing, imagery, direction, and the balance factor, or the awareness of one's own limitations. So if women think you are a 6 on a scale of 1 to 10, don't expect to land a 10 by doing magical rituals. LaVey viewed ritual as a form of psychodrama that helps a person to focus and release repressed emotions to help achieve their goal. And last is the book of Leviathan, which emphasizes the importance of the spoken word and emotion to effective magic. There's an invocation to Satan, which commands the dark forces to grant power to the summoner, and lists the infernal names for use in the invocation. There's also invocations toward the conjuring of lust, destruction, and compassion. The last part of the book contains the Enochian keys, which LaVey adapted from John Dee, a 16th century mathematician, astronomer, teacher, and occultist, who also created Enochian magic, a language and magical system that Dee claimed to be an angelic language. LaVey laid out 19 keys, which are a darker reinterpretation of these keys. At the end of the book, it finishes off with 2 words, Yankee Rose, and there's no explanation as to why this is here. LaVey recorded a tune called Yankee Rose on his album Satan Takes a Holiday, but it could be a tune he played on the organ during earlier years in carnivals and nightclubs. The exact meaning is a mystery. Some think it may be a reference to a song, a ship, or a nostalgic nod intentionally left unexplained by LaVey. But one reason I like this book so much is it got me to read all the other books written by him. He was just a young guy when he started the Church of Satan and wrote this book. I think he just sort of put it together quickly to try and profit from Rosemary's Baby's box office success, not knowing it would sell so well and ignite modern Satanism. He was a high school dropout. Televisions were a new thing when he was a child. Yet he was very well read, and his books with observations not on just religion, but all of life, and they just got better as he aged. There's a lot of stories about who LaVey really was, and I have no idea what's true or not. He seemed to be a bit of a misanthrope and a recluse, which I sort of have become in my older age. I think his philosophy behind the Church of Satan was sincere, and I find his thoughts on some of the ridiculousness of society and human nature to be pretty insightful. Some people miss or just not get that there was a sense of humor behind his Church of Satan and the Satanic Bible. And all these decades later, I still get enjoyment turning back to Anton Sander LaVey's writings. Good night.